Ladies and gentlemen, we have some breaking news as it pertains to the NFL free agent class for 2024, and this is more than likely going to have a huge impact on the Dallas Cowboys' plans for this upcoming free agency period. Let's go ahead and jump right into it as we dive into some numbers and we figure out who should the Cowboys get to fill their running back room. Let's check this out. All right, so you can see here the news is star running backs Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Austin Eckler, Derrick Henry, and Tony Pollard will not be franchise tagged. By all accounts, this essentially means all of these dudes are going to be playing for a new city in 2024, and one of these guys is a Dallas Cowboy, and he was the Cowboys' lead running back this season, totaling just over 1,000 yards rushing on about 4 yards per carry. Now, I don't think that this is exactly what the Cowboys thought that they were going to be getting out of Tony Pollard by way of productivity. And I will be fair to Tony Pollard and say he is coming off of an injury, a pretty serious injury at that. So he should get some grace as it pertains to what you think he can be for next year maybe. But I'm going to be honest, I don't want to see TP back when the Dallas Cowboys is the lead back. If you bring him back on some kind of team-friendly deal and he can just kind of go back to sharing a backfield similar to what he did with Ezekiel Elliott, that's one thing. But I just don't want to go into 2024 knowing that Tony Pollard is our lead running back. That just, to me, is a recipe for a subpar run game. I'm just being completely honest. He seems like a good dude, but come on, man. We got to be real, y'all. We cannot keep falling in love with these replacement level players as Cowboys fans. We did this with Rico Gathers. We did this with Tony Pollard. We did this with Jalen Smith. We have done this with so many players that are extremely replaceable, and for some reason, Cowboys fans just hold on to them like it's that teddy bear that their parents gave them as a wee little child. We gotta let that teddy bear go, y'all. It's time to let it go. The stuffing's falling out of it. His leg is hanging off. Let that teddy bear go into the great beyond, all right? Now, what are the Cowboys going to do as it pertains to their running back room? It's all but guaranteed they're more than likely going to draft a running back, but they also still have the Schmold running back on their roster by way of a Deuce Vaughn, and he could be used in like gadget situations, maybe catching some screens out the backfield. So for the most part, whatever running back that we're looking for to come to the Cowboys, chances are their primary focus with whatever running back they're looking for is, will it be a guy that can fit into the schemes that they are running as it pertains to the run game? And is our offensive line coach going to get any better than he was last season? Those are really the two big questions, but I have a couple of answers here for you. The first thing we're going to go ahead and take a look at are the player comparisons between these 5 players that we just talked about. We have Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, and Josh Jacobs all visible here. And what this is doing is essentially showing us a player comparison to see exactly how well did these guys play last season, and then we're also going to take a look at where their offensive lines were ranked as well, so that way we can kind of, adjust our evaluation of these players based off of that, right? So first things first, availability is your best ability. I'm looking for a running back who's going to be available for all 17 games, and a guy that preferably does not have an injury history. This immediately takes Saquon Barkley off of the docket for me personally, because his injury history does scare me. We need a guy that's going to be ready to play in the playoffs, right? And that means we need a running back who's durable enough to last until the playoffs. Saquon Barkley has done nothing throughout his career to instill that type of faith in his ability to stay healthy, so I'm going to stay away from Saquon Barkley strictly off of the availability factor right here. So he's automatically off the board for me. Same thing goes for Austin Eckler. Not only is he someone that has had a couple of injuries, but he's a smaller back. I think he's actually the smallest back out of this group of running backs, and I don't want any more small backs. The Cowboys need a physical, tough, bruising running game, and you cannot do that with a guy that's going to be falling backwards anytime an opposing defensive player makes contact with him. So we need a bigger guy. We need a guy that's going to stay healthy. Austin Eckler, Saquon Barkley, those two are off of the list for me personally, and I'm telling you now, I'm just kind of walking you through my thought process. That's why I don't necessarily want to see these guys come to Dallas. That leaves us with 3 running backs. We have Tony Pollard, Josh Jacobs, and Derrick Henry. Why do I have Tony Pollard still on this list? Because I'm going to be completely honest, y'all. If we're going to go and get a Saquon Barkley, if we're going to go and get an Austin Eckler, we might as well keep Tony Pollard on the roster, especially since he's going to be another year healthier coming off of that lower leg injury. We might as well keep Tony Pollard on the roster. I will say, however, if it came down to deciding between a Saquon and a Tony Pollard, I would probably go with Saquon Barkley, to be completely honest. I'm just completely jilted by the Tony Pollard experience from 2023, right? But either way, we're left with 3 backs: Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard. TP, we're going to move him off to the side. Unless we can't get a Saquon, Derrick Henry, or Josh Jacobs, that's the only way I want to default back to Tony Pollard. Because, be quite honest, TP would probably be one of the next best options if you're not able to get one of those type of guys. All right, I would honestly bring him back on a smaller contract. We're going to take a look at what their projected market values are as well in just a second, right? But now, out of Derrick Henry and Josh Jacobs is not only a few years younger than Derrick Henry, with Derrick Henry being about 30 years old. I think Josh Jacobs is 25 going on 26 this season. But Josh Jacobs also seems to be a good fit for the style of running game the Cowboys like to use. Josh Jacobs is a one-cut back, and he does a really good job of running the outside zone scheme or that outside stretch scheme, to where the running back's job is to get outside of their tackle, right? Not only that, but he actually has demonstrated some really good vision in situations where his offensive line has crumbled. And we're going to need that. And that was one of my main things about Tony Pollard this season, was in situations where the offensive line wasn't up to snuff, the play was just completely dead. There was no hope as far as Tony Pollard either running somebody over, making them miss, or just finding something and getting something out of that play. There was no hope. With Josh Jacobs, he's actually shown a propensity since his rookie season to be an excellent one-cut back that's going to find the holes in the offensive line, and he's really good at making space or creating space in very, very small areas. All right, so Josh Jacobs is 100% the type of running back that I think would do very well in this Cowboys system, especially when he would be assisted by having a prolific passing attack that would kind of take some of those guys out of the box that he's been seeing since he's been with Las Vegas Raiders. And honestly, I think that the Cowboys would be a place for Josh Jacobs to absolutely thrive. He has some speed, he got some power, he's a slightly bigger guy than some of these other dudes on this list. He's still young, and I just think that he's a really, really good fit for what the Cowboys like to do on offense. Even though he's not the best at catching the ball out of the backfield, I do think that he's going to be a nice addition to the backfield if you were to bring him in. And I think that he would be a slight upgrade over a Tony Pollard. Will he be a 300-400 yard upgrade? Probably not, but I do think he would be a slight upgrade over Tony Pollard. Again, Tony Pollard had 1,005 yard rushing this season. Josh Jacobs only had 805, and he only had 20 less carries than Tony Pollard, but he also played 4 less games as well. And this was actually just a down year for Josh Jacobs. It was just a really weird year in general for the Las Vegas Raiders. So I'm not putting this year against him too much, because at 25, 26 years old, I 100% think that if he goes to a good offense that's ready-made for a running back and everything else is around him, I think that he's going to be amazing. But, I'm going to say this. Derrick Henry has been a guy that has absolutely exceeded all expectations as it pertains to his longevity at the position. For reference, Todd Gurley has been out of the NFL for 3 years. Him and Derrick Henry are the same age. Let that marinate on you just for a second, right? But Derrick Henry, out of all these guys, and keep in mind, these guys are all 3 to 4 years younger than Derrick Henry, and Derrick Henry easily had the worst offensive line out of all these guys. Tony Pollard ran behind what Pro Football Network ranked as the number 6 overall offensive line. You had Josh Jacobs running behind the number 12 overall offensive line with the Las Vegas Raiders. You see Austin Eckler behind the number 20 offensive line with the Chargers. And holy crap, Derrick Henry was somehow able to have the best season running the ball. Out of all of these guys that you see right here, Derrick Henry had the best season running the ball out of all of them by pretty much every single metric. Rush attempts, rushing yards per attempt, rushing touchdowns. He literally doubled the next closest guys, which is Saquon, Tony Pollard, and Josh Jacobs. They all had 6. Derrick Henry had 12, guys. And on top of that, he was still able to catch the ball out of the backfield, but just overall, it's not even close. Derrick Henry had a much better season than any of these other guys, and he had the worst offensive line out of all of these guys. It's pretty cut and dry who's the cream of the crop as far as the running back class in 2024 for the free agents, right? Derrick Henry is going to be the cream of the crop. Now, here's where it gets a little bit interesting. If we actually take a look at the 2024 free agent tracker, right, we can get an estimation of how much these guys would probably cost on the open market. And as far as their ages, D. Henry is 30, Josh Jacobs is 26, Saquon is 27, Tony Pollard is going on 27, and Austin Eckler is going on 29. So Henry is the oldest. Jacobs would be the youngest out of all these guys. Remember, those are pretty much my two options that I want for the Cowboys at that running back position. And the very interesting part about this is if we look at the market value for them, the Cowboys would essentially just have to pay the same amount of money that they paid Tony Pollard last season to bring in a Derrick Henry. So, as a Cowboy fan, let me ask you, yes, Derrick Henry is 30 years old, but remember, we only need him for another year or two. After another year or two, it is very likely this team is going to look completely different. So we really only need Derrick Henry to try to make this Super Bowl run over the next season or two anyway. So you're not really concerned about his age. Can he produce still? Yes, he can. And he would only cost about $10.3 million for one season. His market value is roughly at about $10 million for just one season, guys. This is absolutely something that I would do, especially considering that Tony Pollard costed $10 million last season thanks to the franchise tag. Now, as it pertains to the other guys and how much they cost, does this have any impact on who I want to go get? Maybe a little bit. Derrick Henry's 10.3. Josh Jacobs is projected to only be worth $10.6 million per year this offseason. And he is young enough to where it's reasonable he could sign a 3 or 4 year contract. So are you going for the longevity move and angling for a Josh Jacobs to bring him in as your lead back over the next few years, draft a young guy to go behind him to take that position whenever his legs start to run out a little bit after about year 2 or 3 of that contract? Or are you really going all in? Are you going for the gusto? And are you bringing in Big King Henry for only $0.3 million less than that of Josh Jacobs for just one season? That is a question you have to ask yourself. Now, it gets even more interesting once you take a look at Saquon Barkley is cheaper than both of these guys. He's projected to get a contract roughly about $9.9 million a year for about 3 years. You could probably assume he's going to at least get up to $10 million just based off of his name. But he's cheaper than both. Do you go after Saquon Barkley? Do you trust his injury history? Me personally, I don't. I don't have time for injured guys on this team. I just don't. And then Tony Pollard, he's projected to get $6.5 million next season in his annual salary. Now, if the Cowboys are going bargain shopping, this honestly is probably the move they would make. It would probably either be a Tony Pollard or Austin Eckler, because Austin Eckler is also looked at as being like a value deal type of player at about $7.4 million annually on his salary. So if the Cowboys were to go cheap this offseason, you're going to be seeing either Austin Eckler or Tony Pollard coming back, and he's going to just be a part of the running back room versus being the running back room, right? If the Cowboys are really trying to go all in, then more than likely you see the Derrick Henry move made, or you see the Josh Jacobs move made. Personally, I'm leaning more Derrick Henry just based off of productivity, track record, and the fact that I know this dude is 100% fiending to win a Super Bowl. That's probably the last thing he needs to really cement his legacy as one of the greatest running backs of all time. So Derrick Henry coming to the Cowboys, it seems like a match made in heaven. Huge name, huge profile player, huge desire to win, huge work ethic, great locker room guy. I think this is the exact type of dude that you need to bring on this team personally. So I would absolutely love that move. But you guys let me know what you think down in the comments below. Which running back do you think the Cowboys should go after? And if there's a guy in a draft that you have your eye on, let me know down in the comments below. Till next time, we stay. Same old damn Cowboys.
Calling me, texting me, paging me, asking me, am I still them boys? Y'all usually check on me. Listen. I'm still them boys. Hey! Woo! Hey! I'm still them boys.